An early away goal in the Copa Libertadores can make a match feel longer, not shorter. A Brazilian team scores and gathers near the halfway line, and for a moment the advantage looks clear enough on paper. Then the stadium changes around it. The crowd rises, the noise hardens, every clearance feels temporary, and the next hour begins to look less like the protection of a lead than survival inside a reaction. The score says one thing, the night says another. For viewers outside South America, this is the continent's main club competition, the trophy every major Brazilian club wants because it changes how a team is seen. But the pressure does not wait for the final. It is present in the group stage, in the away leg, and in the sense that even strong sides can lose their footing as soon as the match stops moving at their pace. Part of that pressure begins before the ball is in play. The trip is longer, the surroundings are less familiar, and the sense of exposure is sharper from the start. By the time the teams walk onto the pitch, the tie can already seem to have begun elsewhere. In the journey, in the waiting, in the noise outside the ground, in the first challenge that tells everyone what kind of evening this may become. The match does not arrive as a clean 90 minutes. It arrives already carrying pressure. Then the clock changes. Officially, it is the same 90 minutes. On the pitch, it starts to feel uneven. 5 minutes can disappear when the home side is pressing and the ball will not leave the area. Then 30 seconds can drag when there is a body on the ground, an argument over a restart, a player standing too close to the ball, or a referee being drawn into another complaint. The match stops moving in one continuous rhythm. It comes in bursts, delays, collisions, restarts, and stretches when everyone is waiting for the next whistle. The crowd is part of that rhythm, not as decoration or background sound. A Libertadores crowd presses itself into the game. It reacts to contact, hesitation, delay, and any sign that an opponent may be uncomfortable. A tackle, a player staying down, a hand raised for a foul, a ball nudged a few inches from where it should be placed. Small things do not remain small. The sound arrives at once. The players feel it. The officials feel it. The visiting team feels it each time possession starts to slip and the stadium senses weakness. Brazilian clubs often arrive with the reputation of being the strongest teams in South America, or at least the most gifted on the ball. That only makes the test harder. They're expected not just to play, but to withstand a night that may become rough, crowded, delayed, and emotionally hostile. A smooth passing sequence may matter less in a given moment than winning a second ball under pressure, slowing the game without losing authority, or clearing the same cross twice in less than a minute. The football is still there. It simply has to survive under different conditions. By the knockout rounds, that pressure sharpens. The stadium no longer seems to be waiting only for a result. It is waiting to see who can hold shape, hold nerve, hold the lead, hold the next 10 minutes when the game starts tilting. Every touch feels more public. Every mistake seems to linger a little longer. An advantage can remain intact and still feel fragile. What people came to believe about the Libertadores was not simply that it was difficult, but that it answered doubts other competitions could leave unresolved. A league title could confirm quality. A strong run could confirm confidence. This tournament carried a harsher kind of judgment. It was where a team was measured once the match stops feeling stable or familiar. For Brazilian clubs, that judgment had particular force because they often arrived with a recognizable image attached to them. Brazilian football was associated with skill, rhythm, and fluency. The Libertadores did not cancel that image. It tested whether it could survive under harder conditions. A side that won there was remembered differently from one that merely played well. It seemed more complete, more convincing, and less dependent on the match unfolding on its own terms. That helps explain the weight of a phrase like knowing how to play the Libertadores. Supporters and commentators used it to describe something they recognized immediately, even when they did not define it precisely. Some teams looked impressive only when the game remained orderly. Others could absorb tension, friction, and delay without seeming to lose themselves. It separated teams that were admired from teams that were trusted. Certain results carried force for the same reason. An ugly away draw, a narrow win, or a qualification earned under pressure could remain in memory longer than cleaner performances elsewhere. Could this team take the night as it came and still come through without looking diminished? When the answer felt like yes, the result grew after the final whistle. That memory was carried by very specific images: a goalkeeper taking the right extra second, a defender throwing himself at a loose ball near the 6-yard box, a midfielder absorbing contact long enough to keep possession alive for one more pass. In another setting, those moments might feel secondary, useful details within a larger performance. In Libertadores memory, they can become the performance itself. The match is remembered through what a team managed to endure without letting go of itself. The meaning did not remain confined to that match. Supporters carried it outward and turned it into part of the club's image. A team could emerge from a Libertadores tie looking tougher, heavier, and more serious than before. Players were spoken about differently. The badge itself seemed to carry more authority. Uncertainty could harden into belief. The Libertadores carries unusual force because it is not simply another competition surrounded by louder stadiums and longer travel. It is the stage on which Brazilian clubs are judged outside the shelter of their own league. Inside Brazil, a team can build authority through points, squad depth, domestic form, and the familiarity of a season that gives status time to settle. In the Libertadores, that status has to travel. Brazilian clubs are expected to be stronger, richer, deeper, and technically superior. The real question is whether any of that still feels true once the setting changes and the game begins to slip away from familiar terms. The tournament format gives that comparison its edge. A league season allows teams to absorb a bad night and move on. The Libertadores concentrates the meaning instead. One away match can bend the shape of a group. One concession can alter the emotional weight of a return leg. A narrow result does not sit passively on the table. It changes what the next match feels like before it begins. That is why these nights often seem heavier than their scorelines. A draw, a late goal, or a frantic survival job can carry more than the score itself suggests. Then the competition starts stripping away continuity. South America offers no single football environment that holds from one round to the next. Distances stretch, conditions shift, altitude, climate, officiating habits, crowd pressure, stadium rhythm, even the pace at which a match seems to breathe, none of it settles into a single standard. A Brazilian side that looks settled in domestic play can start to fray once those conditions begin to interfere with the tempo it prefers. The event feels different because the tournament keeps removing the assumptions that made domestic authority look stable in the first place. For Brazilian clubs, that challenge is almost never faced in isolation. Libertadores nights arrive in the middle of state championships, league fixtures, domestic cups, travel, rotation, injuries, and accumulated fatigue. The public sees 90 minutes under floodlights. The team arrives carrying much more than that. Decisions about who starts, who is rested, who is protecting a muscle problem, who can manage another flight, and who can survive another emotionally heavy away leg are already inside the match before kickoff. A side that looks composed or ragged on the night is often showing the visible edge of pressures that began weeks earlier. Because the Libertadores is the continent's recognized stage, those nights do not remain local once they end. Results circulate further. Images travel further. A tense away draw, a narrow qualification, a team surviving long pressure without allowing the tide to collapse. These scenes move beyond one club's internal memory. They are watched, repeated, compared, and absorbed across South America as proof of something larger than a single result. The competition enlarges the audience, and once the audience enlarges, so does the value of what the match appears to confirm. That wider circulation matters especially for Brazilian football because domestic status is never the whole story. A club may look powerful at home, lead the league, dominate stretches of play, and still carry an unfinished question beyond its own borders. The Libertadores is where that question becomes public. Success there returns with a different kind of recognition attached to it because it has been seen and accepted outside the national frame. The achievement is no longer protected by local familiarity. It is crossed into a harder market of judgment. The nights that last are the ones in which all of this meets at once. The away pressure, the unstable rhythm, the public scrutiny, the expectation that Brazilian strength should travel. By that point, the match is no longer carrying only its own scoreline. It is carrying reputation, comparison, and the fear of looking smaller once removed from home conditions. What lasts in memory is not only the drama of the night, It is the fact that the night took place within a competition built to make reputation unstable and then measure what survives. The format compresses the stakes. The settings disrupt continuity. Continental circulation turns episodes into benchmarks. By the time supporters look back on a bruising away draw or a narrow qualification, they are not remembering a difficult match in isolation. They are remembering the moment a club's standing held together in conditions designed to make it wobble.